trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USBTO, từ Helen Ten, từ trên Scout, Logistics và Warehouse. Xem hình thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.
In this video, I want to talk about the optimization flow of your PPC. So basically, weekly and monthly optimization practices for PPC and how to go through them. So I broke everything down in other modules, but in this one, I kind of want to tie it all in together in a visual. And so you can see exactly what you should be doing every single week, every single month. Let's jump right in. You can see here, I built a flow chart for you guys to kind of understand. Now, from the launch of campaigns, there's a few things that we need to do. After launching campaigns, so let's say you just launched your campaigns, 7 days later, or however long it takes for you to accumulate some data, you're going to go and download the bulk sheet. And we're going to cover obviously the bulk sheet in the bulk sheet module, but you want to identify the sales drivers, the main sales drivers, and you also want to identify which keywords are profitable and not profitable. The ones that are profitable, you might want to increase the bids or keep them the same. Ones that are not profitable, you might want to lower down the bids. Also, things that are spending money and not making any sales, that's not helping us, we want to lower the bids a little bit. But remember, look at the cost per click, and if you add 1 cost per click and it's still under your threshold of ACOS, you're fine. So if it spent $5 and the cost per click is $1 and it spends $1 more and might make a sale, and that's $6 and your product is $24, puts you at a 25% ACOS, right? So $5 spend, $1 cost per click, 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 divided by 24, the price of your product, is 25%. That's your ACOS. So if 25% is fine, keep it. If that number is actually 50% and you're like, that's too much, lower the bid. Stop spending so much money on it. Next, I'm going to scroll down and talk about search terms. So we're going to identify all of the profitable search terms and launch them. Now, before you do this, there's one thing you have to ask yourself. Am I happy with how much money I'm spending right now, or do I need to cut down on my spending? If your answer is you need to cut down, this is not the right time to do this. So if you're spending $100, making $300 in sales, and you think, maybe I should launch some more profitable search terms, I would say first, look at other optimizations that reduce your spend before spending more money on new campaigns. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to extract those profitable search terms. You're going to launch them in campaigns. Part of them will be profitable. Other parts will not be. But you are going to have to spend money on all of them. And during that process, you will spend money. And if you're already unhappy with how much money you're spending now, it might not be the right time. But if it is the right time and you're happy, or you feel like you've done everything with your current PPC campaigns, it's time to launch new campaigns and hopefully use those profitable search terms to generate more profit and more sales through the new search terms. Another thing that I want to cover is irrelevant search terms. So we talked about negatives in the other module, but this is one thing that you have to also be careful about. If you write your listing really, really, really well, you should be fine. However, sometimes Amazon will show you for irrelevant search terms. When you just launch, because Amazon doesn't fully know what your product is, you want to check the search term report and identify any irrelevant search terms. So these are search terms where they're like that vaccine card holder, right? If I'm selling a credit card holder and the keyword vaccine pops up, that's irrelevant. If I'm selling a hair supplement and the keyword fur pops up, that's irrelevant. And there are so many other examples of this where whatever you're selling, a keyword could pop up, it's not relevant. So let's have a strict auditing process where we're adding those negatives quickly so we're not spending money on anything that we don't need to, because every dollar counts. Next up, we're going to actually identify negatives in auto broaden phrase. So these are not irrelevant search terms. These are search terms that are in auto broaden phrase. We can't lower the bids on them, right? We'd have to lower the entire keyword's bid, but we want to add them as negatives because they haven't performed. So we're going to go here into the search term report, identify those keywords based on ACOS, extract those keywords, and then add them as negatives in their own campaigns. Remember, we want to add as negative exact, not negative phrase, unless that keyword, you don't want to see it ever again. After that, I'm trying to identify keywords that I've launched but haven't gotten any traction. Sometimes I get the question, what bid should I start with? Well, there's no real right answer, right? You start at an arbitrary number. So you want to start, let's say, at $1. But what if that dollar is too low? Or what if you start at 50 cents and it's too low? You want to gradually work your way up. Maybe if you have a bigger budget, you can start right at $2 or something like that. But if you do end up making a mistake and starting a little bit too low, you should be looking at all of your keywords. And if anything is not spending or getting enough traction or impressions, you want to increase the bids so you can start getting traction. Remember, everything we're doing is based on data. And if we don't have data to back up our decisions, we can't make any decisions. So you want those keywords to get traction. Once they get traction, once they get spend, they're either going to become profitable or they're not. And then you can lower the bids or add them as negatives. But without spend, we're never going to get anywhere. After that, I'm looking at my placements. You can either look in your campaign manager individually at each campaign, or you can go into the placement report. You can actually also go into the bulk sheets and optimize placements right there. So there's 3 ways for you to do it. But what I'm doing is I'm going into every campaign and I'm identifying where certain placements have performed really well. And if a placement like top of search has performed well, I have data to back up that the ACOS is good, that it's generating a lot of sales, the click-through rate is high, I'm going to increase the bid by placement a small amount to try and show up more for that placement because I have the data to back up that it's profitable. Now, the other direction also applies. So if I had gone back and found data that shows that top of the search is profitable, increase my bid by placement, but instead got a negative result and now my ACOS is too high, I want to go in and scale that back down. Lower the percentages that I have added, maybe bring it back to 0 if I'm on a tight budget. But you know, if we tried something and it didn't work, there's no shame in going back and removing that. The next step after that is budgets. So I showed you how to do budget rules. If you have budget rules, that's great, and it's already automatically running. And if your campaigns are profitable, then your budgets will increase. However, if you don't have budget rules, what you can do is you can go and audit all of your campaigns in bulk sheets or directly in campaign manager, identify which campaigns are generating a lot of sales profitably, increase the budgets. Allow Amazon to spend more money on those campaigns because they're generating you sales. Obviously, the more money you can spend profitably, the better, because your sales will also grow. So essentially, this is kind of my week summarized. There's a couple other things in there I haven't included. These are all of the levers that I'm pulling. Of course, there's analytics, documenting analytics, making sure you understand what's going on in your campaigns. But generally, as you launch these campaigns, this is now your weekly flow or however. And another question I always get is, how often should I be doing this? And it all depends on how much money you're spending. If you're spending $100 a day, it might take 2 weeks for you to get enough data across all of your keywords so that you can make data-driven decisions. However, if you're spending $1,000 a day, you might only need 5 days to get that same amount of data, and you can start making decisions and saying, this keyword spent too much money, let's lower it. This keyword is profitable, let's launch it, and so on and so forth. So it all depends on how much money you're spending. The more you spend, the faster you can get data, and the faster you get data, the faster you can make data-driven decisions.
Chị đang bán hàng trên Amazon. Skyrock cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi. Như đăng ký brand với USBTO, từ Helm Tôi trên Scout, lược, Tích và Warehouse. Xem thêm thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.